Nightclubs, gyms, and fitness centers and classes will also close entirely, effective at 8 p.m. this evening, until such time that it is deemed safe for their reopening. Again, I repeat, casinos, racetracks, movie theaters, performing arts centers, nightclubs, gyms, and fitness centers and classes all will close entirely, effective 8 p.m. tonight, until such time that it is deemed safe for their reopening.
We've made the decision to further toughen the guidelines and blunt the infection now. We'd much rather be ahead of the curve than behind it, and that's what we are. Therefore, my administration is recommending that all Americans, including the young and healthy, work to engage in schooling from home when possible, avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people, avoid discretionary travel, and avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts.
The market was in a free fall. The Dow losing down almost 3,000 points. I missed the percentage. I think about 13% loss there. The S&P down 324, NASDAQ down 970. Let's bring
right now because the stock market just opened and it just closed. Within 30 seconds, the Dow had dropped and the S&P 500 had dropped below their trading limit that sets off a freeze, a suspension in trading in the market. You see it right there, nearly a 10% drop in the Dow in the first minute of trading this Monday morning. Of course, it comes as the coronavirus crisis continued to spread around the globe overnight, now nearly in 150 countries around the world, 49 states, plus the District of Columbia. There was an emergency rate cut by the Federal Reserve on Sunday night, but that did not do the trick in the markets this morning.
It seems to me that if we do a really good job, we'll not only hold the death down to a level that is much lower than the other way, had we not done a good job. But people are talking about July, August, something like that. So it could be right in that period of time where it washes through. Other people don't like that term, but where it washes through.
Is this the new normal until the height of the summer?
We'll see what happens. But
Matt Hancock, the health secretary, saying there are now 53 deaths caused by coronavirus in this country. That's up from 35. Let's have a listen to what the health secretary had to say.
Mr. Speaker, the coronavirus pandemic is the most serious public health emergency that our nation has faced for a generation. Our goal is to protect life.
I got some test results back for coronavirus and it came back positive. Yeah, and it sucks.
First, we need to ask you to ensure that if you or anyone in your household has one of those two symptoms, then you should stay at home for 14 days. That means that if possible, you should not go out even to buy food or essentials other than for exercise, and in that case, at a safe distance from others. If necessary, you should ask for help from others for your daily necessities. And if that is not possible, then you should do what you can to limit your social contact when you leave the house to get supplies.
The death toll climbs every day by a little more, and so does the urgency around the question, how bad can it get? We've seen a leaked document warning that NHS staff that up to 80% of the population could be infected in the next 12 months, meaning up to 7.9 million people might need hospitalization. And even if we ramp up our hospital bed, nursing and ventilator capacity dramatically, how can the system cope?
To introduce a temporary restriction on non-essential travel to the European Union.
Delay and flatten the peak of the epidemic by bringing forward the right measures at the right time so that we minimize suffering and save life. And everything we do is based scrupulously on the best scientific advice. Last week, we asked everyone to stay at home if you had one of two key symptoms: a high temperature or a new and continuous cough. Today, we need to go further, because according to SAGE, the Scientific Advisory Committee on Emergencies, it looks as though we're now approaching the fast growth part of the upward curve, and without drastic action, cases could double every 5 or 6 days. So,
예약이 꽉 차 있고 주시고요. 네, 일주일 전에 건강 검진하셨다고요. 지금 본인 증상은 어떤 거 있어요? 고개 좀 위로 하세요. 소리 크게 해보세요.
Another hideous day on Wall Street. Markets plunging today. The Dow Jones Industrial average sinking down almost 3,000 points. Its worst closing day since 1987. 1987.
For the young and healthy people to understand that while they may experience milder symptoms, they can easily spread this virus, and they will spread it indeed, putting countless others in harm's way. We especially worry about our senior citizens. The White House Task Force meets every day and continually updates guidelines based on the fast evolving situation.
Restaurants can have more than 50% capacity and must have customers seated far apart from one another, and almost all forms of entertainment have closed down. I just came in from checking out what it looks like outside, and the streets are deserted, utterly deserted. Almost looks like Wuhan, except we have more cars moving about. But I tell you, you can go, 20 yards in another direction or 5 miles that way, and the picture will be completely different. One town across the river, the Hudson River in New Jersey, Tarrytown, has completely locked down, but towns nearby are completely wide open.
Within the last few minutes, the French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France and most European Union partners will close their borders to non-European countries for 30 days from tomorrow at noon. At the same time, the movement of French citizens will be strictly curtailed for at least 15 days. Only essential travel will now be allowed in France, with infringements sanctioned.
The picture has become a symbol in Italy of a system in the north of the country that is stretched to its limit. Hospital workers, nurses, doctors, the heroes of the fight against coronavirus, themselves near breaking point.
We are united, and we will fight this forsaken virus.
At a hospital in Milan, hallways and offices have been turned into makeshift intensive care units. In Brescia, tents are used to treat the sick, Rome too beefing up its capacity. When he locked down the country, the Prime Minister explained.
We live in a system in which we guarantee health and the right of everyone to be cured.
Moments ago, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announced that he is canceling in-person voting tomorrow because of the outbreak, tweeting, quote, "We cannot tell people to stay inside, but also tell them to go out and vote."
I understand the coronavirus now impacting the Supreme Court.
Right. The Supreme Court was to resume courtroom oral argument next week, but now it's going to postpone those arguments. Now, the most high-profile case that was to be heard was one March 31st. This is the long-running battle by President Trump to try to shield his taxes and financial documents from Congress and a prosecutor in New York. Now the court has just announced that it will postpone those arguments to some uncertain future date. The justices were scheduled to meet in a closed-door conference, their regular conference.
have a simple message for all countries: test, test, test. Test every suspected case. If they test positive, isolate them and find out who they have been in close contact with up to 2 days before they developed symptoms, and test those people too.
Stock market took another hit today. Is the U.S. economy heading into a recession?
Well, it may be. We're not thinking in terms of recession. We're thinking in terms of the virus. Once we stop, I think there's a tremendous pent-up demand, both in terms of the stock market and in terms of the economy. And once this goes away, once it goes through and we're done with it, I think you're going to see a tremendous surge.